Okay, it's time for me, an anarcho-communist, to do the political compass. I haven't done this for a while, and I'm interested to see how I've changed. So, I've done this test before, and, during my egoist time, in my more individualist time, I was pretty close to the center. I was pretty close to the center, but at the bottom, so, very libertarian, but center economically, I guess. And I want to do it again. Now I'm an anarcho-communist. I've been an anarcho-communist for a few months now, again. This isn't the first time I've been an anarcho-communist. I was one when I got into anarchism in the first place. However, I want to go through the political compass just to see where I end up being. How far left will I be? Will I be very libertarian? Let's see. And we're going to get into this, let's see how we do. I'm not going to really script this. This is just going to be my raw opinions. Anything that comes out here will be pretty genuine stuff, because I haven't really thought it out, if you will. Alright then, let's get into this, starting with the first question. Right. If economic globalization is inevitable, it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. Of course it should. Of course, any development humanity makes should serve, well, the people, because the people are the ones that caused that progress in the first place. This idea that, we need to care about, the corporations and all that is neoliberalism, to say the least. You care about the private aristocrats, if you will, over everyone else. I don't really believe economic globalization is inevitable, per se. I think over time we will more decentralize as we become more self-sufficient with better technology. I think it'll lead to more of a localist thing developing. Okay, next question. I'd always support my country whether it was right or wrong. Strongly disagree with that. If you support your country for whatever reason without questioning it, you're an idiot. You are a brainwashed dolt. Let's just put it that way. Alright. Next question. I don't think I need to explain that one too well. No one chooses his or her country at birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Yeah. I thought about this one for a while, and I decided it's pretty narcissistic to say, well, this country's the best because I plopped out of a vagina on this continent in this bunch of fences that make up this country or whatever. Do you even know your country, really? I don't think you do. Like, your community around you, but that's not your country. I mean, my country's a massive island of 65 million people. Do I know every one of them? No, I don't. So it's like saying, what, do I have a family of millions of people? No, I bet there's people from other countries, maybe even other ethnic groups who are somehow closer related to me. With the way humans mix and all. So, it's probably true that some sub-Saharan African person is somewhere more closely related to me than some of the British people out there, even though I'm British. So, I'm not really proud of being British. I see it as a bit of a bizarre thing when, we've got this old woman, it's the Queen, the monarchy and all that, and then you got these soldiers with a massive hair, looks like Marge Simpson or something. It's just like, what the hell? What am I looking at? It looks like a weird cult almost, let's just put it that way. Okay, next question. Our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Race doesn't exist. I used to think it did, but I actually found out, I looked into researching what race is, where it came from, and I found out that race is a political definition. It's not biological. So, if it's just political and you can't distinguish races, people just draw the lines wherever, mainly based on phenotype. Oh, this person looks different to me, they look black, they look Asian, they look Native American or whatever. You're making these distinctions from your own subjective interpretations, not objective science. Who knows? That Native American person might have a lot of white DNA, but you just can't really see it. That's just the genes that didn't get preferred for their phenotype. You don't know that, do you? So our race has many superior qualities compared with other races. Strongly disagree, because race doesn't exist. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Let's just put it this way, the enemies of the Turks are the Kurds, the enemies of the Kurds or ISIS? Are the Turks friends with ISIS? No, they're not. And that's the type of logic you have to use if you believe that. It's kind of stupid if you ask me. Okay. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. That's when you have nations getting more powerful. That's when you have states going above and beyond, passing the agreements that we shouldn't be this despotist, if you will. Is despotist a word? I don't know, but you know, we established the Geneva Conventions. We established that you can't attack civilians. You can only attack military targets. That is agreed in international law. And I think international law is a good boundary, you know, a good starting point to prevent atrocities and genocide and all that terrible stuff. So, is it justified? No, it isn't. Oh, is that it? Oh, we need to be the world policeman? No. Because you know what happens with the world policeman? Oh, look, they're policing, per se. I wouldn't even say policing. Their own interests, you know. They went into Iraq for the oil. They want to go into Venezuela now. Lots of oil there. I wonder why. Yeah. It's not to do with the leader being slightly more, you know, socialist or whatever, if he really is. It's not to do with that at all. It's all about the oil, my friend. That's why they're trying to overthrow Venezuela. Moving on, next question. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. You know, I had to think out this one pretty, you know, I thought this one out really thoroughly, and it's a difficult one to clarify, actually. You know, when it comes to the tabloid press, and it's all about, oh, celebrity culture, and then there's going to be a page about, this immigrant paedophile did this, or blah, 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 whatever, right? You know, it's all there to trigger your emotions and say, oh, this is why you need to vote Brexit, this is why you need to vote for the Conservatives, Jeremy Corbyn supports Hamas, he's anti-Semitic, all that. But that's only one side of it. And I thought about this question a bit more deeply, and I found the other side to it. You know, let's talk about educational YouTube channels. That's an example where information and entertainment are fused together. But for a good cause, if you ask me. Like, let's take BreadTube. You know, it's this new recent wave of left-wing content creators, some of them getting quite popular. They're pretty entertaining, some of them. I like ContraPoints. H-Bomber Guy's hilarious. And he's well thought out in his philosophy as well. He gives information and entertainment and puts them together in a really succinct way. So, is there a worrying fusion of information and entertainment? In some regard, sure. You know, with the tabloid press, I think that's a very big case of this. With corporate news media, yeah, I agree as well. You know, the pandering to celebrities, you know, they're showing, ooh, Kim Kardashian did this, Kanye West said this, Kanye West wore a MAGA hat, and he, you know, said he was bullied. It's like, ugh, I don't really care. I don't care about what these celebrities are getting up to, because I don't know who they are, and they're like a single person in the world without really any political influence, so who cares? So, where do I stand on this? I don't know. This one is difficult for me to figure out, but there is positive uses to fuse information and entertainment. It's very easy to say, oh, there's a worrying fusion because of the tabloid press, and yeah, sure. But I think it's more optimistic than pessimistic, so I'm going to, you know, I wish I could go right in the middle here, but I'm gonna lean to disagree, sorry. Yeah, I think that's how I feel on that. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Now, the economy. Oh boy. We are talking about attitudes here, not the FTSE. Yes, the FTSE. Alright, cool. That's the UK stock exchange, I believe. Alright then. People are more ultimately divided by class than nationality. Well, again, here's the thing. I believe nationality is just a manufactured identity that we just attach to ourselves based on where in the world we are, mainly. So, ooh, I was born in this country, ooh, I must identify with the weird people with the really tall hair, the soldiers or whatever, and, oh, this monarchy, oh, sure they have the best interests in my mind, don't they? Ooh, and Parliament, I'm sure they're not corrupt, are they? Yeah. I don't trust any of those people, and I'll tell you what, they're in a different class to me. However, I can more emphasize with, you know, someone from a completely different culture or country, from the opposite side of the world, who is dealing with the same issues. They're working class. They have to sell themselves in order to get by to an employer. It's like, yeah, the common themes live without, and therefore the class divide is much more clear than nationality, because nationality is something we just make up. It's not real. It's just a identity we create to be comfortable, and it's often created by putting yourself into a safe space and saying, all these other people, people with different skin colours, people who speak different languages, they're too scary, I don't want to go near them. And we just end up segregating ourselves voluntarily through this ignorance. But I'll come to that later, because there's some good questions about that. So, ultimately divided by class more than nationality? Yes, strongly agree. Okay, next question. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. Okay, I've got an interesting take on this one. I could go for the pure economics of it, but I'm going to go take this one from a more personal perspective. I see inflation as a coercive institution almost, and let me explain that, because it might not sound very clear from the outset. Inflation means that the money I have, if I've got the same amount of money now that I do in, 6 months or a year or whenever, that same amount of money will be worth less because goods and services will be more expensive, because there'll be more money in circulation. So, the Royal Mint printing all this money is making my money worth less and less. That's inflation, right? So here's my understanding of it. That I wish I didn't have to put my money in the bank. I don't trust the banks. The banks might have their own interests at heart. In America, under Bill Clinton, I believe, they repealed Glass-Steagall. This was a law that prevented the banks from doing bets on personal finances. So if you put your money in the bank before Glass-Steagall was revoked, you could be sure about them not taking that money and betting on the stock exchange and having it blow up in your face. However, they revoked that under Bill Clinton, and now, people bet on that. And then there was the weak reform under Barack Obama, Dodd-Frank I believe it was called. But how do I know that the Conservatives, the Tories, will just not repeal something like that, those protections, and say, well, those protections are gone. Oh, looks like we blew all your money betting on big oil. Haha, sucks for you. Then I would rather there not be any inflation, because then, I could put my money in my mattress and say, well, I'll have the same exact amount of value now that I will in a year if inflation isn't a thing. So, if you control inflation, if you prevent inflation, what you effectively do is you make it so people don't have to depend on the banks, which I think is a nice objective to attain, to be honest. That'll make people more self-sufficient and less dependent on the aristocratic institutions that we have at the moment. So I'm going to go strongly agree on that. Moving on. Because corporations cannot be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Okay, I tried to fit the profit motive somehow into protecting the environment, but I just couldn't do it. It doesn't. It just doesn't work. Let's take the Flint water crisis, where companies kept, dumping their waste in the river. It's not their problem anymore. If the community gets sick and they, skirt the regulations, if you put a president in office and have a legislative branch that will just skirt the regulations even more and just chew them down to nothing, then wow, we get more profit, and we're going to do that. So, it's like, if we get rid of all the regulation, then companies will just magically be good. No, they won't. No, they won't. They'll continue to pollute because, guess what? They're socializing the losses and privatizing the gains. You have to deal with the pollution. I'm sure they're rich enough to find a way around it. It's not going to be their problem. It's going to be your problem. And this pursuit of profit has pushed us past 400 parts per million of carbon dioxide. I think we're at 417 now. It's rising extremely fast, and we need to put our foot down and stop it. We need to stop putting this stuff in the atmosphere, but the profit motive won't let us. And, you know, as much as I hate government and all, they are trying to prevent this. China and India, you know, two countries in the developing world, or maybe, you know, the near economically developed countries or whatever you want to call them, they have undertook projects to plant lots and lots of trees. They're the ones who are actually increasing the forest cover in the world. You know, China's got this plan of stopping the Gobi Desert through the Green Wall, which is fascinating. And India, they're just planting a lot of trees in general, and meanwhile America is saying, nah, we don't need to participate in this because, you know, going into the Paris Climate Agreement will make US manufacturing uncompetitive. You know, we won't be able to compete. So it's like, oh, we need to compete, so screw the environment. Well, that's not a good way to think. You can't trust corporations to voluntarily protect the environment. You just can't do it. Okay. From each according to his ability to each according to his need is a fundamentally good idea. I believe it is. So let me explain this one then. The ideal society, this is talking about ideals, not what we have now, but the ideal society for me is one where we destroy conflict, we abolish stress. Now I might say, oh, you might not be able to do that completely, but the idea is we need to challenge the systems which cause stress, and stress causes lower quality of life. And, you know, if we've got better quality of life, we wouldn't want to change as much, right? We've got plenty of technology now that we could make our lives better with. You know, I'm all fine with technology. Technology is cool. We can use technology to alleviate climate change if we wanted to do it. If we cared enough, we could switch to 100% renewables. We could do it in very few years, but we're not going to because of the people who are lobbying the government. The fossil fuel industry is pretty in bed with them, right? So that's the issue, and that's why we need to kick them out before we get to 2030 and, you know, try and prevent 1.5 degrees of warming. Anywho, let's go back to the question. So, I think this way to think is helpful for us. And because we're not thinking in this way, we're thinking in the way, well, we need to compete, we need to out-compete each other. And this competition is leading people to become stressed, and they fall into substance use, and they end up costing society more through their neglect of themselves than they otherwise would. So I think it is a fundamentally good idea. Let's move on. Okay, strongly agree with that. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Okay, this is an idea. It's like, well, oh, we have this water, it came from this pure spring, it's the best water or something. Probably not true, they just bottled tap water and just sold it to you. And said, oh no, it was bottled at this spring, and it's like, oh, it's really expensive because, oh, this company did it or something. Really? Okay. Can I just start bottling water and say it's from the, whatever river's near me, you know, whatever spring is near me, I'll just say, oh, it's from that. Drink my precious water, it's the best water you can get. I mean, even though it's just tap water. Oh, well done. That's kind of sad if you think about it, that people will spend money on this tap water, and it's not actually what it says, you know. Because I don't really notice that much of a difference between the taste of water from the spring and water from the tap. It's all filtered anyway, so what's the point? So, yeah, I bet they actually just fake it, to be honest, and who cares? So, is it a sad reflection that something is a consumer product? I think consumerism itself is a sad reflection of society. Consumerism is just the idea of, oh, we need to buy until your balls fall off. Balls fall off? What the hell? Buy until your brain falls out? I don't know. It's this idea that you are here to buy more stuff. We are going to give you all this propaganda. We're going to subject you to this propaganda across the internet and on TV and in the newspaper. That, oh, you need this, and without this product, you'll be inferior. Your friends will laugh at you. No one will like you without our product. This is the key to popularity. And now we've got companies pretending to be, oh, we're really progressive, Gillette and the best a man can get. Is it, subverting the stereotypical shaving ad? And it's like, oh no, the liberals have done this. It's like, oh no. So, I think it's kind of pathetic, actually, the lengths we'll go to manipulate people to buy useless crap they don't need. I think it is very problematic to society. But we've basically destroyed the rationality that consumers have through these propaganda techniques. I mean, advertising is deftly woven into propaganda. It's a very key part of propaganda, so it's basically private propaganda. Let's think of it that way. Yeah, agree. Right, strongly agree. Okay. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. Okay, my belief with land is it should be owned by who uses it. So, if a group of people live on the land, they should, manage it between themselves. So I believe in a system of common land. Now, one of the things that I'm told, this land's unowned. Is it? Really? No. It's a myth. Unowned land isn't a thing. They just say that so they can get an excuse to privatize it. They just want to take it away from the commons. Oh, it has some natural resources, and we want to sell these to you. Oh, haha, well, look at you, you're dying in the desert. Oh, look at that, the oasis is owned by a private company. Oh, well, we could, give you water. We could. Oh, but you don't have money. Well, then just walk off into the desert and die. No one will care. And I think that's really a problem, If things boil down to profit that much that you just kind of neglect your fellow man, when he's in that level of need, it's like, oh, well, if you can't pay for the water, you could become my slave, which is preferable, slavery or death. I'll let you pick that one. So, yeah, land shouldn't be a commodity. It should be determined by who uses it. Ownership by use when it comes to land, I think, is a much better ideal. Oh, if I'm the one on this land and I use it, then fine. I get that idea. If I, make use of the acre or so that I have, I grow crops on it, I grow my own food, I'm self-sufficient or whatever else, I think that's fine. I think that's pretty cool. But when it gets to the point, it's like, oh, we're just going to, make this land a commodity. Oh, you don't have the money. Oh, well, sucks for you, you can't use it. And let's put it this way as well, I mean, this idea of land as a commodity goes back to the enclosure years, so during the enclosure movements, the aristocracy put fences around pieces of common land that people were, collectively relying upon to survive. They were kicked off the land, and then they were told, oh, you can either work for a wage on this land, for the aristocrat, the new boss, or you can go into the industrial factories and work there for a wage, and that's where wage labour originated from. It wasn't a particularly peaceful affair that it's often cracked out to be. Capitalism actually came with a pretty violent revolution to start it off. Okay, so my position on that is strongly agree. So, moving on. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to society. Oh god, strongly agree with that. Oh, well done, you predicted the stock market, you predicted a company would do well. You earned that money, didn't you? You earned it. Oh, you predicted that cryptocurrency would become very valuable and then you sold it off at the peak before it crashed. Well done, you deserve all that money because you guessed something, even though you didn't actually do anything for society whatsoever. You just predicted something, it came true, your gamble paid off, and you've got money now. Makes a whole lot of sense. Alright, protectionism is sometimes necessary in trade. Protectionism... This is a very, society-oriented today question. Conventional, is that the word? I forget. Contemporary. Contemporary question, that's the word. Protectionism is one of those... I almost see it as a dogma, to be honest. People say, oh, we need to keep the jobs here, we can't let the jobs be shipped out to lower paid labour overseas in China, India, Bangladesh, wherever, right? That's the idea of protectionism. So, oh, you ship the jobs out, well, we're going to put these taxes on you, or tariffs they call them, which means you have to pay more to ship them here, which raises the price and makes the price... the idea is we'll make the price equal, so if you just manufacture the clothes or whatever over here, then it's the same value and you create jobs here. But it also goes to this idea, the obsession that, oh, everyone needs a job. Do they? Does everyone need a job? We'll come back to that question because there's actually another question that touches on that, and I think it'll be better to get those points out there. But my position on protectionism is one of, an idea that shouldn't exist but has to because of capitalism, basically. You know, without that system, without this obsession of profit, you know, we'd just trade between communities. Would say, oh, well, we've got this land that's very capable of growing coffee. You have a lot of cows, you know, you can make that milk into cheese and you can give us cheese and we'll give you coffee, you know, it's mutual aid and all that. You don't need protectionism when it comes to that. But protectionism only becomes necessary because we live in the jobs economy. We live in a economy that's obsessed with, if you don't have a job, you must suffer. You're lazy, you're a moocher, or whatever. We need to surpass that. We need to go past that and to a more futuristic, post everyone needs a job society. So I'm going to go disagree. Not strongly disagree because it kind of has uses today, but ideally I wouldn't have protectionism. Okay. The only social responsibility of a company should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. That is in reality what they do best, isn't it? Delivering a profit. Profit, profit, profit. Who cares what else? However, the social responsibility, you know, of just producing profit kind of neglects the planet. I've talked about that before. So, you know, if companies have to exist, we should hold them to a very strong social responsibility of actually caring for the community. And if you don't do that, well, it's just, you know, societal suicide. Strongly disagree with that. The rich are too highly taxed. Okay, I don't believe in tax for a start. I don't believe in money either, you know, communism and all. But the rich are too highly taxed today? No, not really, because, you know, a lot of these tax rates have been cut for the rich under the Republican Party and the Conservative Party in the UK. We've cut taxes on the rich because this idea, oh, they'll create more jobs and the wealth will trickle down, even though that never happens, and boom, Great Recession. Oh, great. Well, that helped a lot, didn't it? Just cut taxes for the rich, you create a stronger divide between rich and poor. They just sit on the money, they're not creating new jobs, and, you know, people got so much money they don't know what to do with it, while others have got none and they're basically homeless, rough sleepers. Marvellous. I love society. So, let's put it this way, I believe 8 people, 8, you know, wealthy billionaires, are richer than half of the world's population. The poorest half of the world, 3.5 billion people, maybe a bit more than that, have less money than the 8 richest people combined. The 8 richest. 8 people have more wealth than 3.5 billion. What the hell? That's not right. That doesn't make any sense. They didn't just work harder to get that level of wealth. That is insane. So no, the rich aren't too highly taxed. Moving on. Those with the ability to pay should have access to high standards of medical care. This statement is Orwellian, because what it's actually saying is, those with the ability to pay should have access to good healthcare, while the rest of you get shafted, while the rest of you don't have access to good care at all, or don't even have access to care at all in the first place. I mean, that's what happens in America. Oh, you don't have money to pay. Well, you gotta pay out of pocket. Your premium won't cover this. You had a heart attack. We put you in this hospital. Oh, well, this hospital doesn't fit under your insurance plan. Well, now you're in shitloads of debt and probably suicidal over it, you know. You probably just want to kill yourself to get it over with because of how much stress society has put on you because of this philosophy of, oh, if we just care, you know, if people can pay more, they should get better care. No, we should all get the best care. We should all get the best care possible. Strongly disagree. Okay. Governments should penalise businesses which mislead the public. I don't believe in governments, and I don't believe in business. Let's just put it that way. But in today's society, because this is a, current society question, a contemporary society question, I should say, then companies will lie to people. If you don't regulate their advertisements, they'll just blatantly lie. In the UK, we do have regulations against advertisements blatantly lying. They're allowed to exaggerate, but they're not allowed to lie, just outright lie about their product. And those regulations do at least protect us somewhat, because who knows what these companies would get away with otherwise. Oh, we're going to sell this pill. Oh, it'll cure cancer. Sure. Some desperate people would actually fall for that, because they're so desperate that they subvert their fact. They stop paying attention to truth. And when you're that level of desperate, if you're in that level of desperation, you'll just believe anything. You just want a hope. You just want God to hold your hand. Even if you don't believe in God, you get led down that path. And it leads to a lot of people being exploited. So, this idea, you can just trust them and they'll regulate themselves. No, they don't. They do not. So, should strongly agree. Right. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. So there's this idea that in capitalism, pure anarcho-capitalism, with no government and all, that monopolies won't exist, because monopolies require government intervention to exist. I don't think this is actually true, though, because if a company has much more resources than any other company, it can just provide a better service anyway. So let me give the example of YouTube. YouTube is a video sharing site, right? And you can upload any length of video up to 10 hours, I believe, maybe even a bit more. I'm not sure the exact limits, but you don't have a limit. You can have higher quality. You're not limited to a certain amount of storage that you can use and upload to. Unlike something like VidMe. VidMe was a competitor to YouTube, but it couldn't compete because it just couldn't offer a better service. Nothing can offer as good a service as YouTube. It's just not possible because of the resources that YouTube has. So, the only people who could compete are some very, very rich corporation, like Amazon or Facebook. They're the only people who could compete with that, but they're, busy doing their own thing. Maybe they will in the future, and they'll just offer other services, and they're all trying to pander to the woke liberal crowd, so we're just like, we're all tolerant and stuff, but we don't really care. They're not offering, diverse opinion or anything. So my position on that is, yeah, you kind of do, actually, because otherwise, some things just can't be competed. With the situation of MySpace, people bring this up, but with MySpace and Facebook, I see it more of a situation where social media, it's not as intensive on storage as videos. Videos are intensely intensive on storage. So different industries can be challenged, others cannot, unless you've got a ridiculous amount of resources where you can actually provide a good enough service. VidMe couldn't do it, BitChute can't do it, PewTube is basically this alt-right version of YouTube, and that can't do it either. So, my position on that is you kind of do, so strongly agree. Yeah, alright. The freer the market, the freer the people. Let's look at a situation where the market is very free. Neoliberalism. Neoliberalism prices itself on a free market, but to keep the market free, you must prevent the people from subverting the market. And what happens when you do that? Well, you result in a society with very free market but restricted social freedoms. An extreme example of that would be Pinochet's Chile. In Pinochet's Chile, they had a very free market for those with the money. However, anyone who tried to subvert the ideology of marketism, if you will, or capitalism I should say, well, they found themselves thrown out of helicopters or locked in forced labour camps and concentration camps across the country. So, that's an example where the market is very free, the people aren't. If you disagree with the idea of free market, we'll throw you out of a chopper, basically. Well, that helps a lot now, doesn't it? So, what's my position on that? No. The freer the market, the freer the people is just not true. I think the market is a system which kind of denigrates people, to be honest. Let's think about it this way. If you don't have the capital to engage in the market if you don't have means of production that people can be employed to work on, so it's your property and people work on it, right? You get money from that, and you give a wage to the worker. You're making profit from just owning that thing. In the case of the market, most people don't own things, things that can employ others to work on. So they have to put themselves into the system of financial prostitution, basically, where we'll sell ourselves to your company to get a wage so we can buy the stuff we need to live. And that's the system we're living in. So the free of the market, the free of the people just isn't true. Next page. I just took a swig of water there because when I talk for a long time, my mouth just gets really dry. Okay, back on topic. Ugh. Abortion when the woman's life is not threatened should always be illegal. No, that's where you go to coat hangerville. People used to shove coat hangers up their reproductive organs to terminate pregnancies before Roe v. Wade. So, no, you shouldn't outlaw abortion. Even if you're pro-life, people will still get abortions. They just won't do them safe. People will still get abortions, but they won't do them safely. They'll just shove a coat hanger up their vagina and do it that way. They'll just find a way to do it. You can't stop abortion. Okay, next question. All authority should be questioned. A strong keystone of any strong society, any intellectual society, is questioning anything that's just assumed to be true. Oh, we're just going to assume this to be true because this is true because it is. No. Give your justification. Why are you justified to rule over me in this manner? What is your justification? Can you meet a burden of proof? If you can't, you ought to be abolished, and we'll replace it with a horizontal organisation where everyone is on an equal level. Can you justify your hierarchies? If you can't, piss off. Okay, next question. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth leaves the world blind, right? I think that's how it goes. No, you shouldn't do that. It's like, oh, if someone kills someone, should you kill them? Well, that's the death penalty, that's an idea. Alright, if someone rapes someone, should they get raped? What? No. That won't affect people equally anyway. People get affected differently by different circumstances. So the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth is a very primitive way of looking at criminal justice. I'll just put it that way. Okay. Taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theatres or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. Okay, this one's more difficult for me. Taxpayers, I'm paying taxes to the government and they spend their money on a museum or a cinema or a theatre. What do they mean by theatre? Do they mean like a traditional theatre with a stage? Or do they mean the version of a theatre like a cinema where you watch films? I'm not sure exactly what they mean. But since it's worded Britishly, that's a word, isn't it? Theatre with R-E-S, that's the British spelling. The American spelling is theatre, E-R-S. So, I'm gonna assume this means traditional theatre. I think that's what it means. And I don't go to traditional theatres. I don't really go to museums. The internet has kind of made the traditional museum obsolete, if you ask me. If you want to look into the history of something, you can just, as a Google search away. You can look up a Wikipedia page on it or something. However, museums could offer that, you're there, and you see a massive skeleton of a dinosaur. It's like, whoa, maybe that makes me think a bit more. Maybe it does. Maybe it does make you think more than just seeing a picture of said skeleton on Google Images. Couldn't deny that. However, usually these, prop-up theatres and museums thing, it's often just pork. Politicians attach, these bills into other bills that help their area without caring about the rest of the country, if you will. It's pork barrel spending, that's what this is. And pork barrel spending is kind of a problem. I kind of rather have less tax and, not have the museums and theatres. I'd gladly sacrifice those if I'm paying less in taxes, to be honest. So, my position on this is disagree, I think. Not strongly disagree, but... actually agree, not strongly agree. I misread that for a second. Should not. Right, agree, yeah. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Schooling is indoctrination, that's the purpose of it. The origins of Western schooling come from Prussian military teachings, that's where they originated from. So it's all about a way of making people comply to authority and submit themselves, and, give in to being commanded from above over and over again. Eventually you'll break them, and you'll have them forever. That's the idea of school, that's how it works. We don't really teach people all that useful stuff. We're just trying to destroy the rebellious side of them so when they grow up and go into the workplace they remain compliant. I'll come back to that though, because there's a question later on about that. So, school should not make classroom attendance compulsory. I believe school should be a voluntary thing, to be honest. You shouldn't be forced to mandate that everyone gets brainwashed to a ideology. I think people should be able to develop themselves and go out more and experience the world in their childhood. I think that will actually develop them more. So an idea of unschooling, I'm pretty fond of the idea of unschooling and democratic education like Summerhill. I think that's another good opportunity. However, I still don't think it should be mandatory, because when you make things mandatory, it breeds contempt. People don't like being forced to do things, so if you force people to do these things, they will rebel against it. That's how children are. They're rebellious, it's naturally in them, unless you crush that rebellious spirit, and the job of the school system is to, over time, dismantle and finally crush the rebellious spirit of the child. So, my position on that is strongly agree. Okay, next question. All people have their rights, but it is better for all of us that different people should keep to their own kind. No. Strongly disagree with this, and let me explain. Okay, so this is a situation, this idea, we'll be safer with people we know, people who look like us, people who act like us. I don't agree with this. This breeds animosity between different people because they aren't experiencing each other. You didn't grow around these other people, so you don't understand them. And the best time to learn and understand is childhood. That's when the brain is at its most plastic state. That's when people are capable of learning the most stuff and settling into what they believe of society. So, if you grew up in an all-white society, you're much more likely to be a neo-Nazi than someone who grew up in a multicultural society where they were around different ethnic groups. So if you're around darker-skinned people from Africa, if you were around people descended from East Asia, if you're around just, Europeans, Western European people, you see all these people, and it's like, hey, I got along with Shang Li. I don't know, I'm just picking names out of a hat here, but I got along with her. I got along with I don't want to think of a black name, it'll probably just be pretty racist, so I'll pass on that bit, but I get along with this man, and I get along with this kid, I get along with that kid, We got along with all these people, so it's like, yeah, these people are cool. I don't hate them because they look differently from me, and what I've figured out, looking at how white nationalists and neo-Nazis got out of their ideology, is they just became genuine friends with someone from a different group. They got introduced to someone, they had an open mind for a second, and then they met a Jewish person. It's like, hey, he's pretty cool actually, he's a cool guy. He's quite a lot like me, he likes the same games I do, he likes the same genre of films, he likes similar music, he's a cool guy. That's how you get people out of extremist groups. Extremism, when it comes to racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, all these different forms of bigotry, I believe is formed by ignorance. So if you grow around, people are all the same, you'll naturally be skeptical of people who look different because you're just not used to it. And that's where I believe the roots of racism lie. I don't think it is just because people are malicious. I think it is a natural personality flaw that we have, that we grow up in this false sense of security around people who are too similar to us, and I think it would be more beneficial for us to grow around a wide, diverse section of people, if you will. This would make us much more open to the idea and say, well, everyone here, they're all cool people. Hey, that guy's a Muslim, and, he's good friends with me. We like similar music, we like, long walks on the beach, or whatever. And I think it's that idea, that's how you get people out of these extremist, racial supremacist groups. You have to intermingle with other people. That'll do it. Okay, next question. Good parents sometimes have to smack their children. No. That's bad parenting. That's violent. You should instruct the child. You should understand the child. Trying to understand where they're coming from. This is an idea of, oh, we need to, use physical retribution to punish them. Oh, he didn't do well on the test. Slap. No, that doesn't help. You got to explain to the child why we want to help you do this. Explain to them we want the best future for you. Show them you care, and that's how you build trust. You build trust by showing care and showing compassion. And if you don't do that, well, you don't deserve to be a parent. I'm sorry. Next question. It's natural for children to keep some secrets from their parents. Sure, that's of course natural. I mean, people keep secrets from other people. If you want to keep a secret from someone, just don't tell them it. It's like, it's natural for children to keep secrets from their parents, like it is natural for, people to keep secrets from the government because they don't want the government spying in on their lives all the time. They believe in the right to privacy, as Article 12 of the UN's Human Rights Act dictates. That's what they believe in. And I think that is natural both for children to keep secrets from their parents and adults to keep secrets from the aristocracy. They don't want to be spied upon. They don't want this infringement on human rights. But we'll get into that later. There's a question about that. Right. Possessing weed for personal use should not be a criminal offence. Strongly agree. I don't even need to explain that one. The prime function of schooling should be to equip the future generation to find jobs. Okay. This, again, is that idea of we're going to dull the mind to prepare you for the drudgery of the workplace. That's what school is for. That's the purpose it serves. And that's the problem. We live in this idea of everyone needs a job, everyone needs to work, and for this, what we end up doing is we end up creating what David Graeber called bullshit jobs. So some jobs are just complete bollocks. We don't need them. They don't exist for any good reason. They're just there for jobs. We create jobs because they're jobs. We don't create them for a reason. So, for example, the state of Oregon in America outlawed people pumping their own petrol in the fuel station, where you refuel your car. They banned people from pumping their own petrol. Why? Not for safety. It wasn't anything to do with health and safety and, some rowdy kids using them and setting fires all over the place and all that. No. That wasn't happening. The reason they outlawed it was to create jobs. Pathetic. They did it to create jobs for the sake of creating jobs. And I think David Graeber explains this really well in Bullshit Jobs, that a lot of jobs are complete rubbish. David Graeber even talked about himself having one job once where he was a security guard defending or, protecting, if you will, an empty room with nothing in it. What's the point? If you're just protecting like an abandoned building with nothing in it, why? What, is it like a war against squatters or something? Maybe that's the case behind it, but the point is these jobs have no reason to exist, and if that security guard disappeared from that abandoned building, would life really change? Probably not. If Oregon legalized the pumping of petrol, they might have done it, I don't remember if that law's still intact or not, would it change? Would there be a calamity that people have lost all their jobs and, oh no, the economy can't function anymore? No, it doesn't happen. This idea of creating jobs for jobs' sake is just so archaic. It's so something we need to get behind. So the prime function should not be. The prime function of schooling should be to help you understand and boost intellectualism, boost skepticism, make people ask questions, the opposite of what it currently is. So strongly disagree. People with serious inheritable disability should not be allowed to. No. Fuck your eugenics nonsense. Get out of here. Out. Out with you. The most important thing for children to learn is to accept discipline. I believe I've already gone through this. The disciplining is a way of making the child submit. It's submission. They want you to submit to prepare you for the drudgery of adulthood. This idea that adulthood should be miserable. We should be miserable. If you're not miserable in your work environment, you're not trying hard enough. That's the idea. That's what they want to go for, but is that really the case? I mean, I've already gone through the jobs for job's sake, which I think is just stupid, and something we really need to change. So, the most important thing for children to learn, if you ask me, is to become god damn it, why did I say the number? Free-thinking intellectual skeptics. We should question everything that we put in front of. Everything should meet a burden of proof, and if it can't, it shouldn't exist. That's how we should think. That's the ideal. So the most important thing should not be to... So I strongly disagree. Okay. There are no savage and civilized peoples. There are only different cultures. Okay, the term peoples, not to be confused with people. Of course, there's savage and civilized people. There's probably some really savage people out there, alright? Not going to deny, ISIS, people who behead people because they don't follow the right religion. That's pretty savage, right? I think we all agree, but when it comes to the term peoples, what it refers to is ethnic groups. The term peoples is often used in fascist discourse. You've probably heard it. It's like, well, this people here hasn't invented anything, therefore that speaks badly about them. This people here has a higher IQ, so they must be the better people, right? That's kind of where they're going with this. And I don't think, based on ethnic group, anyone's either savage or civilized. When you're, if you're part of an ethnic group, say an Arab, well, ISIS are Arabs, but, well, mainly Arabs anyway. But are all Arabs ISIS? No. No, they're not. There's perfectly good Arabs out there. People who have Arab ancestry living here. They're perfectly good people. They aspire to do great things. So, in the end, yes, there are only different cultures. I had to think about that one a while, but when it comes to the term peoples with a plural S, it means ethnic groups, very typically so. I learned a lot of that from Massaman, very interesting YouTuber who talks about the origins of ethnic groups and, all the different people groups, and he's a much refreshing take on the whole thing rather than just hearing, another neo-Nazi fascist talk about this is why this group is inferior, they have lower IQ scores, blah 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 and all that, right? Yes, just get past it. Right. Those who are able to work and refuse the opportunity should not expect society's support. If you asked me this one a while ago, I would have said strongly agree, but I wouldn't now, based on the bullshit jobs economy. There's too many bullshit jobs that, if disappeared, wouldn't really change the world at all. It's just that, oh no, unemployment numbers have skyrocketed now, even though the economy's working fine. So, what's my position on this? Well, the position is that some situations, sure, if we require people to produce the food and produce the things that we need to survive, then, and they're not, well, you can't expect society's support if there's no society to support you. You just can't do it. So we should see it as a responsibility for, everyone living in society who is able to support the society. Now, you could do that in a few ways. We could do it in sort of a rotary way where, where one person, tends the fields on Monday and Wednesday, and then someone else does it for Tuesday and Thursday. If they're, they could split the workload between them, and everyone would be better for it. Some people wouldn't be left not working at all, while some people will just be working non-stop. I think you can split that out between people. I think that's what we should be doing today as well. So my position on this, in modern society, disagree, but in other societies, lean agree? I'm gonna go lean disagree. I wish I could go right in the middle on this one, to be honest, but I cannot. Why do you do this, political compass? It's a problem. Please give the middle option. Next question. When you are troubled, it is better not to think about it, but to keep busy with more cheerful things. I can sum up this one with a meme. I'm sitting in a burning house and I'm just like, this is fine. No, it isn't. It's best to think about what's troubling you, find out what's causing it, and see what you can do about it. Because if you're not doing anything about it, then you're just submitting yourself. You're just saying, yeah, it's okay, it's all my fault. I deserve this. I'm just going to take it on the head. I'm just going to bow down to your authority, even if you haven't earned it, even if I haven't thought about it. Strongly disagree. Screw that rhetoric. You should think about it. You should interpret what's going on and understand society. You shouldn't just sit on your oppression and just say, well, I'm oppressed. I'll just play a bunch of video games, it'll be okay. No. Think about it. First-generation immigrants can never be fully integrated within their new community. I disagree. Again, the plasticity of the brain effect. So, if someone comes, especially at a younger age, and they get to a new place, they'll pick up the culture pretty quickly. They might even think it's better and swap out basically everything. They might even start speaking the language. I mean, there's plenty of immigrants who come who can speak fluent English. It's pretty admirable, to be honest. This idea, I don't think it's true that they can never be fully integrated. Maybe they'll have aspects, very small aspects that they hold behind, maybe even better than what Western society does. Maybe there's a more communal outlook that they have that Western society doesn't, because Western society tends to be pretty individualist and kind of obsessed with it sometimes. So my position with this is strongly disagree. Moving on. What is good for the most successful corporations is ultimately almost good for all. No, it is not. It is not. Let's just... No. No, no, no. Okay. No broadcasting institution, however independent its content, should receive public funding. What does this question exactly mean? What does it mean by public funding? I mean, public funding could be two things. It could either be government funding through taxes. It doesn't mention taxes here, but that's what it could be. Or it could be an agreement to a community that we're, gonna pour some of our efforts into, a communal radio station or TV station or something. It could be that. That could be a public institution in a way that gets, funding from everyone because they agreed to it. I don't know exactly what this means. So my position is, I'm going to look at state media compared with private media, right? So let's compare the US with the UK. Let's compare the BBC, which is the biggest, I believe the biggest broadcasting institution in the world. It's also government owned by the UK. To the Trinity in America, MSNBC, CNN, and Fox News. They're the big three, right? And it's odd, actually. You'd expect state media to be more submissive to state power. It just seems pretty logical, right? But it isn't, oddly enough. And let's talk about this. The situation in America has the private media capitulating even stronger towards authority. And let me explain this. You have MSNBC, which serves as the establishment Democratic mouthpiece. You have Fox News, which serves as the establishment right-wing outpiece. And you have in the middle CNN, which says, everything's equal. You have the people on the left, you have the people on the right. Let's debate these issues. Let's debate if global warming is happening, shall we? This idea of having this really tiny spectrum of debate, but allowing extremely virulent debate in that spectrum. Extremely intense debate in that tiny, tiny spectrum. As Noam Chomsky said, the smart way to keep people passive and obedient is to strictly limit the spectrum of acceptable debate, but allow for extremely lively debate within that spectrum. And that's the idea of manufacturing consent. That's how private media manufactures consent. And I'm going to move on to state media now, because it's funny. State media, in my experience, is actually more willing... State media, in my experience, is actually more willing to criticise state power than private media. In the example of the UK, there was a recent example where the police were testing out facial recognition technology in London, right? I made a video about that, the facial recognition video. It was the last one. And a video that came out after that was one by BBC. I think it was their Click division, BBC Click I think it was called. They made a video about this and discussed a pretty overall theme of this. They discussed it in quite a lot of detail and from different opinions. They discussed the idea of privacy. And this is state media. BBC is state media, and they're actually doing a better job than the private media, and it's kind of odd, isn't it? So, my position on this is, for now, I believe the state can do better media than the private sphere, oddly enough. Which is funny. So, no, disagree. We'll go disagree. Right. I'm just going to get another drink because I'm dry again. So I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Page 4 of 6. Let's go. Our civil liberties are being excessively curbed in the name of counter-terrorism. Yes, yes, yes. GCHQ, the war on terror, everything is all about, we'll suppress your rights because it's about protecting you. We're going to protect you from yourselves. No, get out of my life. We don't need it. You're not protecting the people who are questioning you, are you? No, because they're the terrorists according to you. People who question state authority and question the aristocracy. We'll end up seeing those as the terrorists, and that's how it'll end up being. Next question. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it Oh, man. Struggling to talk. Okay. A significant advantage of a one-party state is that it avoids all the arguments that delay progress in a democratic political system. No, it doesn't, because what happens is, if you can't make peaceful discussion available, they'll turn to violence. People will use violence against an authoritarian dictatorship. They'll plot against it. They'll sway the military and try and do a coup. That type of thing happens when you have an authoritarian state, unless it's very, very tightly held together, like North Korea or something. If it isn't, a corrupt force will find its way into the coffers and fund your military better than you can. They'll work for them. They'll chuck you out on the streets or in prison or kill you. A beautiful coup, isn't it? This type of thing just leads to that. It just leads to more violence, because if people aren't being represented, if their needs are not being filled, if they aren't able to have control at all, they will use violence. They'll try and subvert you. So you can't do this idea of having this one-party state and think everything will go okay, because people won't stand for that. They won't allow it. Strong disagree. Although the electronic age makes official surveillance easier, only wrongdoers. No. Oh god, no. What happened to Julian Assange? What happened to Chelsea Manning? What happened to Edward Snowden? Oh yeah, people who pointed out the atrocities of the aristocrats. Locked up. Forever. Held in exile. Held in embassies. They got abused big time. You can't have that. I'll just leave it that one. Okay. The death penalty should be an option for the most serious crimes. Logically, no. Let me explain. We don't have perfect information. It's estimated that, in America at least, I think something like 4% of people on death row are innocent. They didn't commit a crime. They got caught accidentally. They got confused with someone else. And they're going to be killed by the death penalty, The death penalty killed innocent civilians. Should we give the death penalty the death penalty? Yes, we should. Strongly disagree. It shouldn't be an option. It shouldn't be an option. Okay. In a civilized society, one must always have people above to be obeyed and people below to be commanded. This is the idea that we need social hierarchy. Hierarchy is essential, basically. That's what it's trying to say. Do I believe that hierarchy is essential? No. I think hierarchy is a stressful institution which causes conflict between people and makes them deal with health issues, makes them lose control, gives them, a force that they're unable to control in their lives, People want to be able to control their environments and know what's going to happen, but hierarchy, especially if you're at the bottom of it, if you're at the bottom of the hierarchy, your life's being controlled and they don't want to be controlled. That's what's causing the stress and anxiety in their lives. They want freedom. And this stratification of social hierarchy won't allow them to. So one must always strong disagree. Abstract art that doesn't represent anything at all shouldn't be considered art. Modern art, definitely abstract, isn't it? Does it mean it isn't art? Well, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, after all. Art is a very subjective concept. We shouldn't, go around and saying, okay, we're going to dictate to you, this is not art. We're going to dictate that to you. No, I don't think that's right. So, strongly disagree. In criminal justice, punishment should be more important than rehabilitation. Strongly agree. I want to understand why crimes happen. I don't think it's as simple as, oh, these people are bad. Bad people commit the crimes. No. I think it's more like, this person had a financial situation that they couldn't fulfill. So they turned to crime and they robbed people. They burgled houses and sold the things they got to get money so they could buy food or drugs or something. I mean, they're not all, they're not all well-intentioned after all, but I think crime has a reason why it happens. We should understand the reasons and then tailor our approach accordingly to each situation. I think each situation is its own individual case, rather than just having these general, punishments that we give to crimes. So I think someone who shoplifts because they need a bit of food and they don't have money is better than someone who, shoplifts to sell it off to get drugs. Probably. Because one person kind of needs it and the other person's just doing drugs. I mean, yeah, I believe doing drugs should be legal and all, but I do believe it's more necessary to, eat than smoke weed. Let's just say that much. So my position on this is no. Punishment should... Oh, okay, I should have got that one there. Strongly disagree. I'm glad I noticed that. Right. It's a waste of time to rehabilitate some criminals. Listen, some you might not be able to. You might not be able to rehabilitate some, but does that mean you shouldn't try? No, I think everyone should get a chance. I think everyone should get a chance. We should go in, we should try and get into their minds and understand the things that cause them to commit the crimes. I put it this way, let's focus on the disease instead of the symptoms. The crime is more of a symptom of a much larger societal disease, if you will. So the socio-economic situation of the criminal might explain a lot. If they're poor, if they were homeless and they couldn't get a job at all, they couldn't get an income, and they ended up turning to crime and they robbed someone to get a mobile phone or something because it helps with their life. It's not the right thing to do. A person has been violated, sure, but it is kind of you can kind of fit it into its own piece of logic and say, well, this happened for this reason. This person wanted something that they couldn't get and decided, well, I'm going to turn to crime to fulfill my objectives here. It's not right, it's not moral, but I think everyone should be tried. We should try everyone. Everyone's innocent until proven guilty. I believe we should try to rehabilitate people first. Okay, moving on. The business person and the manufacturer are more important than the writer and the artist. My position on this one is, well, the manufacturer is probably the most important out of all of those people at first glance, right? The person who's producing the things that we need to live, maybe they're the farmer or they're producing something in industry or whatever, right? Those people are quite important, if they're producing tables or chairs or something else that we rely upon to live. However, looking at it deeper, the writer and the artist is a different section of society that's often neglected, especially the writer, to be honest. I'm a bit of an artist myself, I want to get into doing freelance art to try and get by, but because I can't seem to get a job in this world, but the writer, let's talk about that. The writers are philosophers. They write books about how they perceive society. Everyone's got their own perceptions, so they perceive society in this way and think, well, I'm going to offer a new way to view society, and I think those views could really expand our human knowledge and lead to very powerful insights that we often neglect, to be honest. So, the power of the writer is something that I think is very underestimated, to be honest. I write the scripts to my videos. Does that make me a writer? In a way, it does. I write them, but then I, speak them out. I put them into video. I put them into an audio-visual form of informational entertainment, if you will. So that goes back to the question on the first page. However, my position on this is disagree. I think the writer is the very key individual here. The manufacturer is very important, but the writer, I don't know, the writer just transcends that almost. The manufacturer is there for you right now, but the writer will be there for you whenever you need it. You can find the insight and knowledge to go further in life. I think that's amazing. Okay. Mothers may have careers, but their first duty is to be homemakers. Strongly disagree. Anyone can be a homemaker. It's not a specifically female thing. I've seen plenty of stay-at-home dads out there, and they're perfectly happy doing what they do. And same with the women. If they want to, go into the workplace, and that's where they're best, they're assertive women, they're good at being assertive or whatever, good on them. Do it. Moving on. Multinational companies are unethically exploiting the plant genetic resources of developing countries. Yes, Monsanto, screw Monsanto. It's all about Monsanto, isn't it? It's like we're going to patent these seeds and now we own you because you grew our seeds. No. Screw off. Get out of that crap. Just please. And I'm not one of those freaks who says, GMOs are always bad, we should do everything natural. No, I'm not going to do the appeals to nature and all, but GMOs can be great. If we can create crops that are more resistant to pests, we could increase the reserves of food we have. We could feed everyone easier. And that's great if you can do that and not make the quality of the food worse. If it tastes just as good and it doesn't lead to, cancer developing because of mutated genes or whatever, then that's the idea. And you can test these out. If you tested the GMOs out and found them perfectly stable, yet you've genetically engineered them in a way which makes them very much superior, that's great. And guess what? We've been domesticating plants for ages now. Let's take the watermelon. They didn't look as big as they were now. They had these very tough cartilage bits in there. They didn't really have a lot of flesh in there. The seeds were much bigger. We can even make seedless watermelons now. Is that genetically modifying them? In a way, sure, but you just don't do it directly. You do it over time by selectively breeding. Is selectively breeding a form of genetic modification? I guess so, over time. I guess it is. Okay, so I'm going to go strongly agree on that one because fuck Monsanto. And next question. Making peace with the establishment is an important aspect of maturity. Strongly disagree. Skepticism and questioning authority is an important aspect of maturity. Mature people are the ones who question their position. They don't just bow down and take it. They don't just jump and they don't just ask how high when someone says jump. Okay, moving on, next page. Okay, the last 2 pages will be nice and quick, so I won't bother getting another drink, because I'm starting to get dry again, but I'll push through. Astrology accurately explains many things. Strongly disagree. Fuck superstition. That's all superstition bunk. The thing with oh, but you believe in MBTI. I'm just gonna quickly address this point, okay? MBTI is based on preference. It's not based on this external factor of the moon and the stars and the planets and the constellations, and that somehow affects your personality. No. MBTI is actually based on preference. It's based on, I prefer these things, therefore I align more with this type. I align more with these cognitive functions. Okay, great. Which I think is more valid because it's not based out in just external gumph, like astrology. Okay, I wanted to just get that out of the way. You cannot be moral without being religious. Strongly disagree. Of course you can be moral without being religious. You don't need to bow to a dogma to be a good person. Screw that noise. Okay. Charity is better than social security as a means of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. I'm sorry, but it isn't. If it was, there wouldn't be homeless people. Homeless people wouldn't exist because people would just give to charity. People give to the homeless charities and there wouldn't be any rough sleepers. There wouldn't be any sofa surfers. People would have their houses because the charity's cared enough. But it's not the case. Charities exist, but they just don't raise enough money, and they never will. It's like, if social security disappears, then, if we get rid of the welfare state, then, charity will take over, and people will get money from these people who just give it away because they're charitable. No, that won't happen. Because that doesn't happen now, okay? People are still suffering with these problems. People aren't homeless because of taxes. They're homeless because charity hasn't done anything for them. And it's not like people will just get more charitable because because the welfare state doesn't exist anymore. No, they need to get by. They have to care about themselves first. So, no, charity is not a good way of helping the genuinely disadvantaged. It is a highly ineffective It's a highly ineffective method, actually, to be honest. Some people are naturally unlucky. Strongly disagree. Luck is just a thing we made up to try and understand what goes on. People who say this, naturally unlucky, it's all this superstition. Oh, I believe in superstition for some reason. It's like, I believe, walking under a ladder is bad luck. Seeing a black cat cross the street is good luck, apparently. I've also heard it be bad luck. Some people, they can't really make their mind up on that one. Smashing a mirror is 7 years bad luck. What the hell are you talking about? Where are you coming up with this stuff? You're just making it up, aren't you? Yet some people are crazy enough and batshit enough to believe it. I don't know how. Next question. It's important that my child's school instills religious values. I don't have a child, but if I did, strongly disagree. No, they shouldn't be forced to bow down to dogma. And that goes for, anti-religious values as well. If you want to force state atheism, no, don't do that either. Atheism should be something we adopt out of skepticism, of course. We shouldn't just do what the Soviet Union did and just outright violently ban religion, because that would just lead to resentment, and over time, people will start to become more religious. People will join religion as a rebellion, like what's going on in China. People are joining Christianity in droves over there. In an older video, I talked about, how Black Pigeon Speaks, the Nazi bird guy, said that atheism is dying out around the world, and I said no. What's actually going on is people are going towards religion because the state repressed the religion so strongly that they're rebelling against the state. If you look in the Western world, irreligion, atheism, agnosticism, deism, where you believe in a god but not specifically any religion, those types of things, those ideologies, those beliefs are becoming more popular. Less people are religious now in the Western world than they've ever been. But the reason the results are skewed and it looks like less people are atheists now than there was then, on a global scale, is because of state atheism. State atheism has died out, and now religion has become a voluntary choice, and people rebel against state atheism and join religion. That's just how it is. People rebel. People have psychological reactance as to being forced to do things. So I'm going to go to the next page now and get this out of the way. Finally, a look at sex. I'm asexual, but who cares about that? Sex outside of marriage is usually immoral. No, marriage is immoral. Marriage is a coercive system which makes people forced to stay with each other because they get state benefits for it or something. It's just a way of coercing people into relationships and holding them there. Marriage really shouldn't be a thing. It's just there because more traditions in the end. That's the reason marriage exists. I mean, it's all fine saying, oh, I agree, I agree, we'll be faithful to one another. You don't need to get a piece of paper and a fancy wedding and say, we're married now. No, you don't need to do that. It's pointless. It's pointless. It's a waste of money. Stop doing it, alright? Okay, next question. A same-sex couple in a stable, loving relationship should not be excluded from the possibility of child adoption. Strongly agree, of course they shouldn't. If they're perfectly caring people, they'd care for a child, it wouldn't be a problem. Oh, but they don't have the right gender. I don't really care, to be honest. Maybe it will affect them slightly, but what's better? Rotting away in an orphanage, or having 2 male gay parents, or 2 female lesbian parents? I'd rather take the 2 gay parents and rot away in an orphanage. Just saying, okay? Okay. Porn depicting consenting adults should be legal. Duh, yes. What goes on in a private bedroom between consenting adults is no business of the state. Duh, yes. No one can feel naturally homosexual. Strongly disagree with that. They've done studies into this and found animals can feel homosexuality. And final question. God, this has been exhausting. These days, openness about sex has gone too far. I don't think it has, and let me explain this one, because it's the last question, I may as well try and explain it. We're becoming kind of repressive on this issue once again, when people start identifying as transgender, and start saying, I feel this way, I'm bucking the orthodox idea of there being 2 genders or whatever. People kind of lose their crap, they go crazy over it, because it's like, oh no, The structures that I trusted are being broken down by this skepticism. This rebellion against the societal norms is too scary for me. And that's where this openness about sex comes from. People are open about sex. They're open about who they are. And I believe people should be true to who they are. They should be true to their gender. They should be true to what they believe, who they want to have sex with, and all that, If you want to be gay, be gay. If you want to be pansexual, be pansexual. If you want to be asexual like me, be asexual. It's not a problem. We shouldn't be forced to hide ourselves and censor ourselves and say, no, I'm just straight. But, people will say to me, because I'm asexual, oh, you're just not ready for it yet. Well, I'm in my 20s now. I haven't been ready for it for a few years. I think I'm asexual. I get the point, guys. Okay, let's see where I stand. We're ready for this, aren't we? Are we ready for this? Let's go! Wah! I'm just going to scroll straight down, and I think it's about here. There we go. There we go. Wow, actually, that's very interesting. Economic left and right, minus 5.88. I don't really know how I'm actually that far right, to be honest. I mean, economic. Left and right actually doesn't mean economics, but I'll come to that in a later video. I'm working on a video about that. Social libertarian or authoritarian, minus 9.44. Very libertarian, very socially libertarian, and yeah, I kind of agree with that. I'm very pro-freedom and, anti-state power. I believe that the people should have the power between them. So, libertarian, yes. Libertarian left, sure. I'm actually surprised about this, though. I'd expect to be more, 2 or 3 squares to the left, so very close to the edge here. As an anarcho-communist, this result kind of surprises me. So I'm not even 6 on there. I mean, I took this once before recently. I just took it pretty quickly, and I got about 6.8, something like that. 6.8 minus on the economic left. So on here, I've only got 5.88, which is actually less. So I don't really understand that, to be honest. I think that's pretty interesting. So I'm interested to see where other people come out on this, and I'm glad to do a new analysis on this. I did an older video. It's currently unlisted because I wasn't very proud of it. I didn't really establish my views very well. I kind of rambled a bit too much. I think I've got better at talking now, so hopefully this video came out a bit better and it gives you a good clarification of where my positions are. And so this is it. 5.88 minus towards the left. 9.44 minus to libertarian right at the bottom there. So that's where my political compass is. I thank you for watching this video. And if you got through this all in one go, I really commend you, because I barely did myself. I had to take a few breaks actually to keep getting drinks, because when I talk for a long time, my voice gets really, really dry. My mouth gets really, really dry, and it starts to hurt to talk. So, I'm glad I could get through this, and thank you for watching this video. Bye bye, I'll see you in the next one, where I'm going to make a video about left and right, not economic, but the actual meaning of left and right. That's what my next video is going to be about. Thank you for watching.